Welcome to Coffee with APNA. I'm Dr. Ava Khetarpal, and today we are going to talk to Aarushi Gambhir. Aarushi Gambhir is a disability inclusion consultant, a published author, and a public speaker. So she is at present doing her own project by the name of Enable Education, which is creating awareness about inclusive and accessible education for persons with disabilities and especially focusing on students with disabilities. So grab your coffee and let's dive in. So welcome to Coffee with Apna, and today we are with Aarushi Gambhir. Welcome, Aarushi.
Thank you, Baba. It is a pleasure.
So, Arushi, as far as we know, you are working in the area of inclusive education and spreading awareness for inclusive education and accessibility. So, what inspired you to join Asia Pacific Network for Accessibility? Was this a personal connection or professional reason behind it?
There's both. So personally, I know what it means to be a woman with a disability in the ecosystem trying to build something from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've been at that journey for 2 years now,
Hmm.
and hopefully miles to go before I sleep. But and network of entirely women-led initiatives, projects, and women at the center of it was also personal and also professional because we talk a lot about accessibility at the project that I had, Enable Education,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we talk a lot about accessibility from the perspective of women as well, right? Safety, security, the choice to navigate the world that as we please, right? Both those things actually come in handy. Both those things I feel are very, very important and act as the backbone of the ecosystem that we are trying to build in India as well as abroad through projects like Asia Pacific Network of Accessibility. So the reason was both personal with me, my inclination towards women-led disability projects, which I don't get to see very often in India yet still, but also professional because accessibility is one of the fundamentals I feel of inclusion, at least in the Indian context.
So, do you think being a part of APNA, Asia Pacific Network for Accessibility, would help you to amplify your work in accessible and inclusive education?
I do certainly hope so, Abha, that it helps me amplify my work across borders. But more than that, it is exciting for me to learn through the community. It is exciting for me to connect and to expose myself and my work to this community, not just to be patted on the back, okay, you're doing such great work, but also to be critiqued.
Mhm.
Maybe you can approach this like this. And you need somebody, that somebody with that lens also.
Yeah,
Not everything has to be goody goody and not everything has to be positive. Sometimes you can be critique, and sometimes it helps you grow as well as a project, as a founder, as somebody who's in the advocacy space, has been there for about 3 years now.
yeah. And we also are looking towards like a constructive criticism, constructive feedback. It would help us to
Absolutely.
improve ourselves. Yeah. So, if you could change just one thing in the current education system to make it more inclusive, what would that be?
I am a firm believer of the power of the youth to become advocates.
True.
Okay. I am a firm believer of the wonders this generation can do. I have seen founders as young as at the age of 14 who are disabled themselves, fighting like their life depends on it to become change makers. And it's not vanity. It's us believing that we can be the change that we want to see in the world,
Yeah.
right? And so if I were to change one thing in the education system, I would just say, let's stop talking inclusive education. Let's walk the talk and become and make youth the part of that talk, right? Because simple reason, you can teach inclusion to teachers, you can sensitize, you can train all you want, but if they don't have the bandwidth, the time, the mental space to be able to talk to one to to a child every day one-on-one, which they don't, considering each of them are dealing with 30 to 40 kids at a minimum every day.
Yeah.
You have to put the onus on the peers to say, you know what, you're with this child the entire day. Please ensure that you don't isolate.
Yeah.
Because again, they're not doing it purposely. They just don't know how to talk to that student. They don't know how to talk to a person navigating the world differently, and it's not their fault. It's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem. Oversight that we see.
So you have been working with diverse groups of people like students, teachers, educators, policymakers, parents. Which group is the most difficult to sensitize?
I mean this with a lot of. I say this with a lot of respect. Um, any person, and I'm not going to age shame anybody. I'm not gonna say a certain target audience. None of that. Anybody who's had certain ideas of what it means to be living in a world and how we navigate a world, and anybody with very strict ideas of normalcy, quote unquote, right,
Mm.
is going to be difficult to sensitize. Now, this could, for all I know, this could be a parent of a child with a disability who's not able to accept that their child is disabled.
Yeah.
It could be that,
Yeah.
when parents parents are not prone to biases because that they have navigated a totally different worldview before they became the parents of a child with a disability.
Mm.
It's not their fault, and those worldviews don't break in the next 24 hours when the child is born. Doesn't happen like that. It's
Yeah.
years of conditioning, right? It could be anybody with very strict ideas of normalcy, very strict ideas of what it means to navigate the world, and very strict ideas of this checklist that the world tends to give a child at birth, that you know what, grow up, go to a good school, get a good education, work hard, get good grades, get a good job, settle down. When you've constantly been exposed to that checklist, it's difficult to break it for yourself. And if you've not broken it for yourself, you won't overnight break it for that child, you
Yeah.
know. And same way with educators, right? Education happened a certain way in in my parents' generation for that matter,
Mm.
right? In
Mm.
that generation, just slapping the child was normal.
Right.
Parents in this generation, if they got to know their child was slapped, it would be a horrendous situation,
Mm.
right? But then again, there were times when children with disabilities weren't even allowed in inclusive classrooms. There was no concept called inclusive education,
Yeah.
right? We have we Yes, there is RPWD, yes, there is UNCRPD, but let me say this out loud, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this again, but we have actually started fostering inclusion for real in the past maybe a decade or even less than that,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, there are certain people, anybody with very strict ideas, in fact, would be difficult to sensitize, and we deal with that all the time. So it's that's about it.
So one word that defines inclusion for you. One word.
One word that defines inclusion for me um, would be sustainability.
And your biggest source of
Because
inspiration?
several actually. So I hold a lot of respect for senior disability advocates in the space, in the Indian context, especially, right? Because this whole debate about disabled, differently abled, specially abled, it's just one example of how ecosystems tend to challenge what was there and what's there now, right? The fact that we are now actually able to view disability from a social lens, from a media lens, from a lens of just, fostering fostering conversation from the lens of just saying that, what, inclusive education goes more than just letting this child sit in a classroom and give his exams. The fact that we are able to have that conversation in this day and age is thanks to a lot of those folks who decided, nahi, we will sit here, no, we'll sit here, and we will get systems to change, and we will open doors for these students, right? So any people like, people like Anjali Agarwal, for that matter, the founder of APNA, right? People like Mr. Javed Abidi, for that matter, you know. So they have inspired me a lot. And in the recent times, activists like Kamya Mukherjee using humor to, dismantle disability stereotypes, it was unheard of. That was my first exposure to humor and disability at the age of 18.
Mm.
So those people inspire me a lot. I respect a lot of their work because the fact that I can even sit here and say that, what, I want to talk to the youth about disability is thanks to these people, because they worked at a time when disability as a term wasn't even said out loud.
Yes.
It was not a conversation that we were having to begin with. So
Mm.
yeah,
Very true. Very true. So thank you so much for your time. And it was wonderful talking to you. And
likewise,
we
it was
wish
a
you
pleasure.
all the best for your future projects. And we are always with you. We are a group.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be a part of APNA, to be meeting people like you. And thank you for this lovely conversation.